They said he had no talent. Born in a four-room house without running water or electricity in Dallas, Texas, Lee Buck Trevino seemed destined for obscurity. Yet this self-taught golfer would rise to become one of the game's most fascinating and complex champions. But Trevino's journey to golf greatness wasn't just about overcoming poverty. It was about navigating a world of intense rivalries, principled feuds, and clashes with golf's rigid establishment that would define his entire career. Lee Trevino's story begins in the crucible of extreme hardship. At just 5 years old, he was already working in cotton fields to help support his family. By 8, he was caddying at local golf courses, watching the game from the outside looking in. This wasn't the typical path of a future golf legend. Trevino had to leave school after 7th grade to work full-time, supporting his mother and dealing with an abusive grandfather who was a gravedigger. This difficult upbringing forged what would become known as Trevino's street fighter mentality. He taught himself golf using a discarded club cut down to his size, sneaking onto courses at night to practice. After serving in the Marines from 1956 to 1960, Trevino found himself working humble jobs at golf courses. He was a locker room attendant, a cartman, barely scraping by on his official salary. But his real education came from something far more dangerous and exciting. Trevino became a legendary money match hustler in El Paso, Texas. This wasn't casual weekend golf. These were high-stakes matches where performance meant survival. As Trevino himself said, "You don't know what pressure is until you've played for $5 a hole with only $2 in your pocket." This experience gave him what he called a killer instinct and a deep appreciation for raw, authentic competition. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and drop a comment below about what you think shaped Trevino's tough mentality the most. Was it his poverty-stricken childhood or those brutal money matches in El Paso? The defining moment that would reveal Trevino's complex character came through his relationship with one of golf's most powerful figures. Clifford Roberts was the co-founder and autocratic chairman of Augusta National Golf Club. Roberts, a Wall Street investment banker, ruled the Masters tournament with what many described as an iron fist for 45 years. He was known for his cold, intimidating presence and rigid control over every aspect of the tournament. For Trevino, a man who had fought his way up from nothing, the clash with Roberts was inevitable. It represented something much deeper than a personality conflict. This was a fundamental battle between two completely different worldviews. Roberts embodied the exclusionary, upper-class traditions of golf. Trevino represented merit-based competition, where skill and guts were all that mattered. Trevino openly admitted that he and Roberts could not stand each other. This wasn't a professional disagreement or a minor spat. This was a deep, personal animosity that would shape one of golf's most famous boycotts. In 1970, 1971, and 1974, Trevino refused to play in the Masters tournament. Initially, he claimed his game wasn't suited to Augusta's course, but later he revealed the truth. He couldn't tolerate Roberts or the club's snobbish atmosphere. Trevino described being at Augusta as walking on eggshells, a feeling completely opposite to his straightforward nature. The club had too many rules, too much pretension, too much focus on social pedigree instead of golf ability. In one of his most symbolic acts of defiance, Trevino would change his shoes in the parking lot rather than enter the clubhouse. This simple gesture spoke volumes about a man who refused to bow to a social order he didn't respect. The conflict went beyond personal dislike. Augusta National had a history of blatantly racist policies that excluded black players and members. When Roberts was asked about black golfer Jim Dent possibly qualifying for the tournament, Roberts dismissed the question with a callous remark about Dent's cousin, who worked at the club as a server. Trevino's opposition wasn't just about rules or etiquette, it was about standing against exclusion and discrimination. But Trevino's complex relationships extended beyond his feud with Roberts. His interactions with fellow competitors revealed a completely different side of his personality. These relationships were built on mutual respect earned through authentic competition, showing that Trevino's conflicts weren't about ego or jealousy. The legendary money match between Trevino and Raymond Floyd perfectly illustrates this complexity. When Floyd, already a rising tour professional, arrived in El Paso in his white Cadillac, he was greeted by Trevino, then working as an assistant pro and locker room attendant. After Trevino polished Floyd's shoes, the condescending Floyd asked who he would be playing. Trevino, described as a pudgy 5'7" figure, simply replied that Floyd was looking at him. Floyd's initial arrogance was obvious. He scoffed at the idea of even walking the course, saying he didn't need to look at any course to beat a locker room guy. But over 3 days and 54 holes, Floyd's attitude completely changed. Trevino used his home course advantage and clever shot-making to win the first 2 rounds. The match came down to the final hole of the 3rd day, with pickup trucks full of spectators bouncing down the fairway to watch. Although Floyd ultimately won by a single stroke with an eagle putt, he left with newfound respect for Trevino. His parting words were prophetic. He told his tour colleagues that there was a little Mexican kid in El Paso, and when he came out to the tour, everyone would have to make room for him. This fierce competition evolved into a shared legend based on mutual admiration. Trevino's relationship with Jack Nicklaus revealed another layer of his complex personality. For much of the early 1970s, Trevino was Nicklaus's chief rival on the biggest stages in professional golf. Despite their intense battles, including Trevino's landmark victory over Nicklaus at the 1968 U.S. Open, their relationship was built on profound mutual respect. Their dynamic was perfectly captured during the 1971 U.S. Open playoff. In a moment of high tension, Trevino pulled a rubber snake from his bag and tossed it at Nicklaus. The prank elicited a scream from a nearby woman and hearty laughter from the Golden Bear. Trevino, now relaxed, shot 68 to win by 3 strokes. This playful moment demonstrated a friendship that went beyond mere competition. Trevino's respect for Nicklaus was evident in his analysis of Jack's game. He once remarked that Nicklaus was the only player he ever saw who didn't have a weakness, except for being a bad wedge player. When Trevino mentioned this to Nicklaus, Jack delivered a perfect response. He said he'd never had to hit one, meaning he was always close enough to the pin that wedge shots weren't necessary. Trevino acknowledged the truth in that statement, showing his ability to appreciate greatness even in his biggest rival. Perhaps the ultimate testament to their bond was Nicklaus successfully persuading Trevino to end his Masters boycott and return to Augusta. This showed that despite their competitive battles, there was genuine friendship and mutual respect between these two champions. Trevino's conflicts weren't limited to people. He waged a lifelong battle against what he saw as the overregulation of golf. This wasn't about being difficult or stubborn. It reflected his core philosophy that golf should be a straightforward test of ability, not an exercise in navigating complex rules. His defiance of Augusta wasn't just about Roberts. It was also about the club having too many arbitrary rules. Trevino criticized contemporary golfers for being gutless and not complaining about restrictions like cell phone bans on driving ranges. He believed players should demand the same freedoms at Augusta that they had at other tournaments. This battle with rules continues today. Trevino recently criticized the penalty given to Colin Morikawa for using a handwritten card with green reading information. Trevino called the rule crazy, pointing out the absurdity of allowing players to use devices to get information and keep it in their heads, but prohibiting them from writing it down. He concluded that it must have taken a genius to think up such an illogical rule. For Trevino, golf should be simple. As he once said, he wouldn't be at a tournament if there wasn't money to be won. Golf courses are all the same with greens and tees. This pragmatic view reflected his belief that the game should be a direct transaction between skill and reward, without unnecessary complications. The story of Lee Trevino reveals that the question of who he hated misses the deeper truth. His conflicts weren't born from petty jealousy or personal dislike. They were principled stands against forces he believed threatened golf's integrity and his own sense of self. His feud with Clifford Roberts was a clash between an authentic working-class champion and a rigid establishment that valued social pedigree over performance. In contrast, his relationships with competitors like Raymond Floyd and Jack Nicklaus showed that he held the highest respect for those who challenged him through pure competition on the golf course. These rivalries became friendships because they were based on merit and mutual respect for each other's abilities. Trevino's journey from a dirt floor shack in Dallas to the World Golf Hall of Fame represents what one contemporary called the American dream. His feuds and rivalries weren't footnotes to his career. They were central narratives that revealed his character and solidified his reputation as one of golf's most authentic champions. His so-called hatred was actually an expression of his unwavering love for the game and his commitment to living life on his own terms. Trevino proved that true champions aren't just defined by their victories, but by their willingness to stand up for their principles, even when it costs them opportunities. What made Trevino's stance even more remarkable was the personal cost he paid for his principles. By boycotting the Masters for 3 years during his prime, he sacrificed potential victories in the one major championship that eluded him throughout his career. This wasn't a decision made lightly or for publicity. It represented a man who valued his integrity more than adding to his trophy collection. The impact of Trevino's defiance extended far beyond his own career. His early stand against Augusta's exclusionary policies helped pave the way for meaningful change in professional golf. When public pressure mounted around the 1990 PGA Championship at Shoal Creek Country Club over its all-white membership policy, Augusta National finally announced its intention to invite its first black member. Trevino's prescient opposition to discrimination had been vindicated by history. Even in his later years, Trevino continued to embody the same authenticity that defined his playing career. He never softened his criticism of unnecessary rules or backed down from his belief that golf should reward skill over politics. His recent comments about modern rule controversies showed that age hadn't diminished his passion for keeping the game pure and accessible. Trevino's legacy transcends his 6 major championships and Hall of Fame career. He represented something deeper in the sport of golf. The idea that greatness comes from within, not from pedigree or privilege. His conflicts weren't character flaws, but expressions of character itself. In a sport often criticized for its exclusivity and stuffiness, Lee Trevino stood as proof that authentic champions could emerge from anywhere and reshape the game on their own terms. Don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories from golf's most fascinating personalities, and let us know in the comments which of Trevino's conflicts you found most compelling.